Alright, hello again and welcome. Like I said, this was a long time coming, but here we go. It's the costume portion. I will be drawing the shapes out on this long sleeve I got from Amazon. It could have been a dress, but I wasn't able to find one this fitting to what she wore on Mars Attacks. This was one of my first times actually making the concoction of homemade fabric paint, which is telling to how long this costume has been in the making. I custom mixed the color to match my reference photo as best as possible, except making it slightly darker. The mixing medium is white in colors. It will lighten the mixture, so I mixed it half and half, which was very close to spilling, but here we go. But I used a plastic bag underneath it, like between the layers, so that it didn't bleed through as much. Then I just used a simple paintbrush. I think this was actually a cosmetic brush, but who knows? So long ago. And I went to town on this, doing swirls just everywhere, big, small, many in between. I think I did mostly big, and then I just filled in the space in between. Front and back as well. And I did the sleeves. It could have been more filled, but considering I was running out of paint, I did what I could. Definitely always mix up a lot more than you think you need, especially with custom colors, because if you run out, you can never do that exact color again. If I remember correctly, I actually left this to dry for 2 days because of how saturated the color was into the fabric, but after it was done, I peeled it away. Here's some ASMR for you guys. As well as being a costume tutorial, I guess this kind of still counts as a costume, but this is more of a prop, and it is the eye that she walks around with. First I started off with a bunch of little rings. I actually picked which one was most similar to hers, and a styrofoam ball that fit into it very nicely. The styrofoam ball did start out as an off-white color, but I wanted it to be a stark white, so I did paint it over with a few layers of acrylic paint. Blowing on that to make it try to dry a little bit faster, and I actually ended up getting on my nose when I was blowing it dry. As for the eyeball itself, aliens do not have the same color irises and outer color, so I did paint it with a red. And then I came in with a black for the iris itself. And I wanted to make this last as long as possible, so I did use a resin. Because it is styrofoam, I wanted to also give it that solidity layer. I stuck a pin through the silicone cup that I was using and then put the eye on the end of that pin to hold it in place so the resin would just drip off of it. To take the bubbles out of the resin and make it dry as clear as possible, I generally take a very small torch to it, but I did forget that this was a foam ball, and well... Styrofoam. That's funny. I didn't even think about that. Okay. Peep the Mars Attacks alien costume from last year in the background. Then the biggest part of the costume. Literally, it's full of secrets. I started off using a simple two-tone wig, again from Amazon, and used a pin to secure it to my mannequin head to work on. To make it as big as possible while not overwhelmingly heavy, I used chicken wire to bulk it up, but I'd have to cut it down first as they don't exactly sell it in the oversized wig size that I needed. Once I cut it down, I had a smaller portion to work with. It's like a really shitty crown. Then I started to shape it better, which involved carefully contorting it with my hands, because that's going to be very stabby material, cutting off the excess and pushing it down into itself. When I had my desired shape, I used a very thin wire to wrap any overlapping pieces and secure it fully into the shape that it was in. And securing it onto the head with hot glue, about 3 inches probably from the start of the wig. Continuing to pull up the pieces and hot glue them into place. Some being a little bit more difficult and unruly, so I had to spend some time detangling these. Oh my god, it's so bad. So mad. And giving up and cutting some portions off. Good thing about a wig though is when you don't need the entire amount of the length. I'm done. Look at that. Look at that. And it's bothering you can definitely just cut it without care. Now it may look like, I don't know, cousin it. That's because it pretty much is. Some of these were a little bit harder to hold as I am a one-woman show, so I used a variation of alligator clips to hold each piece in place as the glue dried. To hold onto the smaller pieces in place and keep everything as tight as possible, I used a level 3, I believe, hairspray and smoothed everything with a glove on my hand, a latex glove specifically, or a nitrile, one of the two. Some pieces end up having a little bit extra length on them, so I put them up with smaller bobby pins, using rods to heatlessly curl some pieces here and there, and further played around and hot glued pieces where I wanted them to go. The bobby pins I had previously put up to hold the extra length of hair in place, I hot glued them and then hot glued them even further over top of themselves so you couldn't see the bobby pins anymore. Finally, I realized that I had planned for its side pieces basically like too long down. So I simply cut those off with some not super hair cutting scissors. And hot glued them to another bobby pin and placed them farther up the wig. You may notice I left thinner pieces at the bottom, and that's to bring up and put over any noticeable hot glue or errors along the way. I just keep prolonging this because I'm afraid of taking it out, but I feel like it's either going to stay or it's not. So the curl stays, don't get me wrong, the curl does stay. But then back up with those side pieces. They wouldn't take a curl how I needed them to, so I used even more hot glue, placed it down on the upper portion, and then I used the tip of my hot glue gun to disperse it so it would be a little bit less noticeable, although I know it was, but it was. I wrapped this hair around a silicone mixing cup that I had, clipping that into place until the hot glue dried down. And then hot gluing that further to the wig on the underside so it wasn't as free-flowing. I hope that all made sense, all that work, and we're good to go. Anyways, that is the costume for the Martian girl.